People really seem to like what Sony is doing with their mirrorless line of cameras. They've got a good range of bodies and lenses, and the selection even got an upgrade because now they've gone to full frame. Hi, I'm Larry Becker. Sony's NEX line of APS-C sensor-equipped mirrorless cameras has earned a solid fan base, and those fans love the idea that they have a full-frame mirrorless option now with the release of the Alpha A7. It features a 24.3 megapixel CMOS sensor along with the new Bion's X processor and the familiar E-mount for lenses, plus lots of familiar buttons, features, and menu functions Sony users already know. I should point out here that Sony has an Alpha A7 and also an A7R. The A7R is different in a few ways, including more megapixels. It doesn't have any phase detection autofocus points. There's no optical low-pass filter. The A7R is more expensive, and there are a few other differences as well. Now, this review is strictly about the Sony Alpha A7. The A7's low light performance is strong, though not industry-leading, with native ISO range running from 100 to 25,600, and in extended mode, it goes as low as 50. Although it's bigger than the NEX mirrorless lineup, the body is surprisingly small for housing a full-frame sensor, and the grip and weight feel good. There are 3 buttons labeled C1, C2, and C3 that can be programmed to give you quick access to pretty much anything you'd want. I also like that the mode dial has a couple of custom setting positions. Basically, you set up the camera however you want and save it to one of the 2 custom mode dial positions. As I mentioned, the lens mount is Sony's E-mount, but because this is a full-frame sensor, you'll need to use an FE lens or other full-frame lenses with an optional adapter if you want the entire sensor to play a role in your image capture. By default, there's a cropped sensor setting that crops the image area when you use APS-C format E-mount lenses, like from your NEX series Sony cameras. But you can turn that off and you'll capture full-frame information as vignetted images. To test the A7, I used the kit zoom 28 to 70 millimeter f3.5 to 5.6 optically stabilized lens, as well as the Sonar T-Star FE 35mm f2.8 ZA lens. This is a really nice prime lens. The autofocus system has 117 phase detection points and 25 contrast detection points, so autofocus performance was pretty quick. On the other hand, I read the 5 frames per second spec sheet claim, and I was only getting 2 or 3 frames a second in the continuous shooting mode. So I went back to make sure that I was shooting continuous high speed. It turns out that there are 2 continuous shooting options, and one has an S on the icon. I guessed that that stood for slow, but in fact, it stands for speed priority continuous. So I had things backwards in my mind. I changed the setting, and continuous shooting was definitely 5 frames a second. Now, I bring this up because I'm sure that there will be shooters out there who are familiar with other brands of cameras, and if this is your first Sony, it may take just a little getting used to. But in the end, the menus make sense and the controls are easy to access and use. For example, pressing the function button gives you quick access to on-screen adjustments like Canon users get when they press the Q button or Nikon users get with the I button. Just spend a little time with the A7, get used to where controls and settings are, and you'll see why so many people love this camera. There are only 2 things I can give Sony a little bit of a hard time about: the lack of details in the manual and the battery charger. Now, the workaround for the manual is pretty simple. If you just go to esupport.sony.com and look up the documentation for the A7 by its official name, the ILCE-7, you'll find a great user guide that's searchable, and it has all the information that I had wanted inside the supplied manual. As for the battery charger, this is it. It's the camera. Now, maybe if you buy an entry-level point-and-shoot, you might expect to plug in your camera to charge it. But with an advanced enthusiast camera like this, they should give you a standalone charger. The workaround for that is under $20. Just pick up an aftermarket charger like the Watson charger for NP FW50 batteries. And since Sony specs say that you can shoot just 340 shots per charge, you might want to go ahead and pick up an extra battery while you're at it. The tilting 3-inch rear LCD panel is nice and bright, and it has over 1.2 million dots of resolution. It works for high and low angle shooting, but it doesn't flip or let you see the LCD from the front of the camera. I usually prefer an optical viewfinder myself, especially outdoors, but this 2.4 million dot EVF is really great. EVFs usually crush shadow detail in bright light. When I put the A7 EVF up to my eye, at first I saw the contrasty image I expected with that crushed shadow detail. But then I pressed my eye even closer to the eyepiece hood so that that hood could block out ambient glare, and the shadow detail showed up on the EVF. It's the best EVF I ever remember using, and I'm actually glad the LCD panel isn't a touchscreen, because I press my nose against it to get the best view through the EVF. The A7 has built-in Wi-Fi, and you can transfer images to your computer or your Android or iOS device, as well as other wireless functionality. I tested the remote control shooting from my iPhone after downloading Sony's free Play Memories mobile app. Setup and use was easy, but not really intuitive. I had to use the help guide I downloaded from the Sony site, and then it worked just fine. Just be aware, this is strictly a remote control shutter button with a remote preview. No other camera adjustments are made remotely, and you can't start video recording remotely either. So the A7 has the still shooting features and functions that you'd expect from a full-frame, state-of-the-art mirrorless Sony camera. And I was really happy with the still images I was able to capture, indoors and out, in bright light and low light, like these. When it comes to video though, my counterpart, Mia McCormick, put the A7 through its paces.
Thanks, Larry. I'll take it from here. Video enthusiasts hoping to capture beautiful footage with a small still camera will love what they'll get out of the full-frame A7. A sensor that size is a rare gem in the world of affordable video equipment. The detail and image quality it provides enables stunning and cinematic video. Back in the studio now, the Sony E-mount allows you to use a lot of lens options, but if you don't stick to those FE lenses that Larry mentioned earlier, you will see some vignetting, and it's a lot more noticeable in video than it is in still images. The kit FE 28 to 70mm f 3.5 to 5.6 lens is a good general purpose zoom lens. If you're just capturing everyday home video type moments, this lens will work fine. But if you're really hoping to show off that full frame sensor, look for a faster prime lens that will allow you to shoot with a shallow depth of field, something that's f2.8 or faster. I enjoyed working with this Sony FE 35mm f2.8. Working in low light conditions, I found that the footage I captured at ISO 6400, 8000, and 10,000 still looked really good and pretty much noise-free. But once you get beyond that into the higher ISO range, I could really see the noise creeping in, and it was enough to bother me. The A7 has a designated movie mode and movie record button. The record button is over here on the side of the camera. You can choose to work in programmed auto, aperture priority, shutter priority, or manual mode. So you have a fair amount of control when it comes to video operation. If you're looking for more of a cinematic look, the A7 will shoot at 24 frames per second, which is the speed film is shot at, or 60 frames per second, which is fast enough to keep up with moving subjects but show minimal motion blur. If you're tracking something moving fast, like an animal or an athlete, the A7 uses a hybrid autofocus system, which is a combination of phase detection and contrast phase focusing. It's not the fastest at finding focus initially, and it didn't always find the correct focus immediately, but once it did, the A7 locked in and had no problem keeping my moving subjects crisp. If you're changing your angle or focus while trying to shoot continuously, you may find the AF a bit frustrating, but it's certainly on par with what you'll find with most DSLRs. For a small, predominantly still camera, the A7 shoots video at what's considered the highest quality available at the consumer level. Full HD 1080 at 60 frames per second in AVC HD progressive format. You can also choose to switch to the more web-friendly MPEG-4 format. The HDMI output is a nice little feature for videographers looking to work with uncompressed footage. Image quality is often lost in compression, and this output will allow you to send uncompressed video directly to an optional external recording device. Now, this may sound a bit extreme for a camera at this level, but if you're looking to do some post-production work to really show off the details that full-frame sensor captures, you'll be happy to know that the option's there. When it comes to capturing decent audio, I'd suggest plugging in an external 3.5mm microphone instead of relying on the tiny stereo microphone located up on top of the camera. In the camera menus, you'll find the option to monitor your audio levels, plus Sony included a headphone jack, so you can make sure everything sounds exactly like you want it to before you press record. The large sensor and minimal size of this camera make it perfect for capturing video in places that don't allow larger DSLRs or camcorders. The Sony A7 easily remains inconspicuous while capturing your moments with all the beauty of a full-frame sensor. Thanks for watching.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.
Scott Kelby here, and welcome to this quick tour of our online training. We have hundreds of online classes for you, covering everything from lighting to landscape photography. From portrait photography to sports, we have classes on wedding, automotive photography, shooting, food, fashion, travel, you name it. The most incredible part of this is the price. You get all of this for just $199 a year, or you can pay monthly for just $24.95. 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week access from anywhere in the world. I invite you to join with us today and start learning right now.